Did you know that a giant bear legend surrounds a stunning geological formation that witnessed the cultural clash between indigenous peoples and explorers?
Wow, that sounds fascinating. What is this place?
It's the Devil's Tower, a remarkable butte that rises dramatically from the landscape of Wyoming.
Yes, and it's not only the first national monument in the United States, but it's steeped in history and myth.
I can't believe there's so much to uncover about it. So, what's the significance of the name Devil's Tower?
Well, it actually comes from a misinterpretation during an expedition in 1875. The original indigenous names, like Bear's Lodge, hint at its true cultural value.
The alteration of names often leads to misunderstandings, and in this case, it also sparked a debate about the monument's identity.
Oh, really? I've heard discussions about renaming it to honor indigenous ties. Did that ever go anywhere?
Some proposals were indeed made, but they faced strong opposition due to concerns about tourism impact. The name remains, but the discussion continues.
Let's talk about the geology. How was Devil's Tower formed?
It's fascinating. The tower is believed to be an igneous intrusion, which means it formed from magma pushing up through sedimentary rocks millions of years ago.
Exactly. The formation is characterized by its distinctive hexagonal columns, which are a result of cooling magma.
Those columns must look incredible. But is the tower changing over time?
Yes, it is. Erosion affects both the sedimentary layers around it and the exposed portions of the tower itself. Some columns are continually breaking off.
The mythology surrounding the tower interacts beautifully with its geology, which we'll delve into later.
Speaking of mythology, what do the local indigenous legends say about the tower?
There are numerous legends, but many involve giant bears. For instance, one story tells of girls escaping a bear by climbing a rock that the Great Spirit raised into the sky.
And these stories often speak to deeper spiritual connections that different tribes have with the land. There's much more about these myths, too.
That's amazing. Are there variations in the stories among different tribes?
Absolutely. Each tribe has its take, adding layers to the cultural significance of the tower. But what happened to those girls?
I'm curious. I heard there's a history of explorers at Devil's Tower as well. What can you tell me about that?
Yes, the first documented visitors were a scientific expedition in 1859. It wasn't until later, in 1875, that the name Devil's Tower was coined.
And after that, it became recognized for its unique characteristics, eventually being designated a U.S. Forest Reserve in 1892.
How did it become the first national monument? It's such a fascinating transition.
Theodore Roosevelt established it as a national monument in 1906. It marked an important step in preserving natural and cultural heritage.
I heard climbing there is quite a thing. How did that start?
Yes, climbing gained popularity, especially after the first known ascent in 1893. Imagine scaling it with wooden pegs.
It has evolved quite a bit, but it's noteworthy that the tower is sacred to various indigenous tribes, leading to some controversy.
What is the current stance on climbing?
Climbers are required to register, and there's a voluntary ban during June to respect the tribe's ceremonies. Interestingly, a majority choose to honor that ban.
So what about the wildlife around the tower?
The area is home to diverse species like white-tailed deer and bald eagles, adding to the natural beauty and ecological importance of the monument.
It's fascinating how the cultural and natural aspects intertwine. Each interacts with the surrounding environment uniquely.
That's compelling. Are there more interesting anecdotes related to wildlife?
Oh, definitely. But those stories are often rich in symbolism, connected to the indigenous legends we've been discussing.
How has Devil's Tower influenced popular culture?
Its iconic shape has made it a perfect backdrop for films like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which significantly boosted tourism.
That's just one example. Its representation in various media points to its deep-rooted mythic status.
I'm intrigued. Can these epic stories help understand the significance of such places?
They absolutely can. And while we've covered a lot, the true depth of the interaction between myth and physical reality at Devil's Tower remains a fascinating area to explore further.